Hello, welcome back to Unfinished Business, the podcast where we loosely talk about business in the creative industries. I'm your co-host, Rich Rutter, co-founder of Clear Left. With me is my good friend Andy.
Hi, nice to see you again.
And with us also is a very special guest. We're delighted to welcome to the podcast Veronika Burian, renowned type designer and co-founder of the fantastic type foundry TypeTogether. Thanks for joining us, Veronika.
Hi, Bo. Thank you for having me.
I was doing my
Um,
due diligence and actually I was on the TypeTogether website this morning seeing which typefaces. I always forget where I get my typeface from. And so I was going through going, yep, use that, use that, use that.
That's nice to hear. Yeah. Actually, we are in the middle, almost done with a complete redesign, back end, front end of the website. I can't wait. We have been with this for the last 2 years and now just putting in the content, making sure that all the card and the user flow and everything is better and improved and works. So yeah, I hope to launch that in September.
oh, cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, very different look.
So something I noticed, I was having another look through the website as well, and I noticed that you founded in 2006, so that means you're 20 years old. Any plans for celebrations?
Actually, no, not really. That was meant to be done already earlier, as it often is.
Yeah.
But originally, we planned to actually have a big party going in Istanbul in September this year as part of a kind of conference together with ISType, Grenchen, and the ANRT. However, due to certain world events, he decided together with us that it's probably safer if we don't do it. And then we were looking for an alternative and we found it in Barcelona. Next April, 2nd of April, we'll have a little conference in the Design Hub there in the Design Museum and a big party, which is, School of Design and Fashion. Very
Excellent.
excited about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We will start with the whole promotion machine, I think, in September, October, when we getting rid of our second phase of the Futura 100 project.
I was going to ask you a little bit about that in a sec, but first of all, how did you start it? I mean, TypeTogether is you and Jose Scaglione, and you met at Reading, University of Reading there. But
Yeah.
why did you decide to start a type foundry, and why the two of you?
You have to remember that back in 2004, 5, 6, the whole type world and the type industry was rather different from today. The conditions were very different. And for me, I was working at Dalton Mark back then in London when it was very small. We were like 5 people. And we were doing basically just commissioned work. And I realized, A, I want to do my own thing. And B, I don't want to do custom work. At least not for a while. And with Jose, we stayed in touch. He was a year after me, but he was in Reading a bit earlier with his wife. And so we met and we liked each other. We had a similar approach to type design, our kind of ideas, what we like. We had a trust. And when I was thinking, okay, I'm going to do my own foundry or something in that direction, I thought it's a bit scary doing that on your own without any kind of business knowledge. And Jose had some experience. He was running his own studio, more kind of graphic design, editorial design studio in Argentina and the US. And somehow I thought I'll just ask him, hey, do you want to try it out? See if we can do something together, some projects together, and see if we can build up a little foundry. That's how it started in late 2005, early 2006. And yeah, we then tried it with that one project, Carmina, because he was back in Argentina. I was living still in London, into the US a few months later. And he was in Argentina. And it was the beginning of kind of this long distance digital communications. So fortunately, font files are very small. So you can move them around rather quickly through email. And we figured that we can work really well together, that we don't mind if the other touches your curves, kind of fixes things, suggests something else. So it became this iterative process of backwards, forwards. And like I said, we both wanted to do editorial design. We both wanted to do proper text typography, which I think had to do with red ink. Indoctrinated with a typeface has to be red and has to be functional and all that. But it really, it resonated with me and Jose. And so that's how we started. And yeah.
And what you just said about your typefaces there, I mean, that's what I love about TypeTogether. You found that whole sort of catalog is that every typeface has a purpose, and it's immediately you can see how usable it is, but they always have this nice character to emphasize that purpose, but to set them apart. And I think that's just why I'm always drawn to them. So tell me about the Futura one then. Obviously the 100 is 100 years of Futura. I thought Futura was a monotype owned thing, or is that not the case?
Not really, no. Partially. So the thing is that the original Futura by Paul Renner was firstly issued by Bauer in Frankfurt in 1927 with a development time of 3 or 4 years beforehand. And so the publishing rights were with Bauer. And of course, the design rights, they will be next year then completely open.
Yeah.
But that's the design. The actual trademark and the digital files are owned by Bauer Type that are based in Barcelona, which is at first glance a bit strange, but that has to do with the fact that during the Second World War, they basically opened or started a collaboration with a Barcelona-based foundry or company to be able to sell Futura, to continue selling Futura, because there was embargoes on German products, of course. And he liked it so much that he remained. No wonder. He did not want to go back to Frankfurt. I wouldn't either. And that's how it ended up there. It remained a kind of a family company. So Vivian Hartmann, she is the granddaughter of the original Hartmann, who worked with Renner on Futura and made it actually into a functional type. And so because I'm here in Barcelona, we have this kind of Spanish connection. We knew Vivian and had been working with her to some extent beforehand. And then this idea came up, okay, Futura is becoming 100, they want to do some celebration. And we had this idea separately that it would be interesting to expand Futura to other scripts, because that's one of the kind of main focus points at TypeTogether is multi-script design. It's really, we started 15 years ago. So pretty early on, realizing that the non-Latin market or the market beyond Latin will become interesting, important, and is much bigger. So we started focusing, we started developing our team in that direction, and so that we have internal experts who can deal with a whole bunch of scripts. And we have a big network of external designers and consultants. And so we thought, okay, let's see if we can set this up and create basically one of the biggest multi-script projects that's out there that is run by an indie foundry. Of course, Google has its Noto. Yeah, okay. Monotype. But Monotype, they did issue a kind of a redesign of Futura, but they went just for Greek and Cyrillic, and they went more into the broad kind of range of styles. So there is a Futura script, which is, I don't know why and who would want to use that never existed. And so they want more in that direction. What we wanted to focus on is the original, really go back. So I went to different archives. I saw original drawings and metal type and so on. And test runs also, and some conversations, which was quite interesting, between Renner and Hartmann or Joost, the art director, just to see how can we, make sure that we basically redraw the Futura in a way as Renner intended. And that was important because we wanted to have our own outlines, good contemporary outlines, to then produce all the other scripts. Because first we thought, okay, perhaps we can work with Bauer outlines, but they had been digitized in the 80s, and then there was an update, but it wasn't, it just didn't feel right. We wanted to do it ourselves. And basically what Bauer, so our kind of collaboration, let's say, with Bauer is the name. So they receive trademark royalties for the name, the same as Monotype has to pay them as well. So it's not really owned by Monotype.
No. Okay. So it's an amazing project, yeah. And what a classic typeface to get your hands on, especially not starting from scratch, but starting from scratch from a digital point of view.
Yeah, and for me, it was really interesting because I never wanted to do a revival. I think I tried once or twice and immediately realized, oh God, no, I can't do that. I want to fix everything and do things differently immediately. So we were shying away from the typical revivals. But with Futura, it was interesting. I was never a big Futura lover before, but when I discovered original metal prints in like 6-point Futura text, and it read beautifully. It was just like it was so beautiful. I was like, okay, I'm flabbergasted. This is a proper thing. And I was really flabbergasted that this is possible. And that was the kind of discovery that a special cut of it can work really well in text. So we decided, okay, we do an optical axis. We're not just going to do a weight axis, but an optical as well. And for most of the scripts, we do have the optical axis. And the remaining 9 scripts, the complex ones, so the 9 Indic, Hangul, and Chinese, they will be out in September.
Getting inside somebody's head
What a project.
by studying old artifacts. It's kind of almost like an archaeological project.
Yeah, sometimes you have to wonder, was this intentional? Is this just an error? Why did they do it this way? It does not quite make sense from our point of view. And so, we just had to take a decision. And then, of course, the tricky part was, how do you translate these intentions, this concept, into something like Bengali? However, Futura is so well known in the world, in all of these countries. So we thought it really makes sense. And it's being used as the mother of geometrics. But it is quite different from other typical geometrics because it's very own proportions. It's Renner, he was a book designer and he was a teacher, a typographer. So he was very keen on creating a text face, but something of its time. So he was very interested in this whole industrial kind of movement, the technology that happened in the early kind of 20th century, which we all know was massive changes in society and how kind of industry and mechanical products and things were perceived as being so fascinating and even solving society problems. So he was really interested in that, and he thought that an old kind of Garamond can't serve that purpose. So that it was time to create something new. And that's why also I saw serif, because that back then was still, it wasn't as ubiquitous as it is today. So and especially not for text. So then he really went and created the uppercase according to the Trajan, the kind of classical Roman proportions. So you have narrow and wide letters. And then he tried to create a lowercase that goes with it. So that's why you end up with this large O, the large E. It has some kind of funny features that from contemporary digital type design, they feel weird because they are not as consistent, but they make sense. So for example, you have the lowercase c is completely cut, vertical cut terminals. And that's because in German, you never have a C without an H or an K. It just does not happen. So to make it come close to each other, he thought, oh, it will look better when it's cut. But then you have the different E's. So there were certain design features and decisions that was interesting to see how overall it really makes sense. It still feels like a coherent, consistent system, which a typeface needs to be. It was a way for us to understand or to figure out, okay, how are we going to translate that into these really complex scripts, Indic scripts, or even Chinese or Korean, without creating a zillion of unnecessary glyphs. So it was a little bit also a technical challenge.
And a lot of collaborators.
Yes, yeah. We I think altogether around 40 people or so. So designers and consultants. That was important in this case. It was important that we have kind of a 2-level validation, because it is such an well-known typeface. We thought we're gonna get bombarded with comments and people will start complaining and we will get bashed. Because of course in Arabic or in Thai or in all of these different regions, there are different design opinions as well. There's nothing set in stone, as perhaps some people might think. So we were clear we wanted to have a designer and at least one consultant with another.
I remember Bruno Mars telling the story. I think maybe it was the first time Dalton Mars did Arabic script, I think, or something. And they didn't use a native reader to design it or even really to consult on it. And it got, they thought it looked lovely, but it got ripped to pieces because it just didn't feel right to a native reader.
Yeah, exactly. It's really important. And we've always done that. Even if perhaps we designed a script ourselves, we would definitely have a native speaker consultant. But pretty much because on the team, we have people who can do Hebrew, Arabic, Devanagari, Thai. So we have native speakers. So that helps. Also, for the team, it's fantastic to have a very diverse cultural team.
Yeah. Can you just tell me a little into this process? I mean, are you doing everything digitally? Do you start with sheets of gridded paper and a fine point? How is this? Describe the process to a non-type designer.
Okay, so grid paper is an absolute no-no because type design works with your eyes, not with math. Yes, you do need to measure things and so on, but there's a lot of optical adjustments necessary to make, for example, a circle look like a circle, but you need to make it more like an egg. Just once. Okay, with Futura, it was in that sense different because I had scanned, I had pictures, and that we would trace, we would compare, we would digitize. And then there is a software called Glyphs, which is a font making software that works with Bezier curves. And you basically draw digitally. Yes, you have a set of tools. And with that, you draw the outline. You have per glyph, not letter, glyph because it can be, for example, an A acute or an uppercase A, lowercase a. It's the same lowercase and uppercase A is the same sound, but it's two different glyphs. Yeah, so you have a box per glyph, and then you have a lot of accents, you have all the punctuation and so. And all of that needs also spacing, meaning you need the distance that is inherent to each letter. It's kind of space on the left and the right that is inherent to each letter. In the old metal days, that's the body. And one of the post-production processes is kerning, where if you imagine the uppercase T and the lowercase a, if you imagine two metal kind of pieces, you can't put them inside each other, right? But digitally you can, so that the A moves underneath the T. And that process is called kerning. So yeah, and then there's a whole bunch of open type coding as well, meaning, for example, a lot of especially text faces, you could have aligning numerals and you have old style numbers that go better with the lowercase because it has ascenders and descenders, like the D and the P. Yeah. So it fits better into a text, and that you can address through OpenType, which for us 20 years ago was like a godsend kind of thing, because we did not have to do the technical bits and pieces and individual files that the designers before had to do with PostScript. And yeah, a lot of testing involved, a lot of tweaking, looking at shapes, making sure it all kind of works as a system.
So it sounds like you're still quite hands-on in the design and the production process. Or are you involved in the business itself? Perhaps more than you'd like to be.
I'm certainly much more a manager and creative director than an actual designer. With Futura, I did design the Latin together, of course, with some help, and also with Jose partially. But yeah, then for the other scripts, I'm mostly art directing, giving feedback. Although with the index now, I'm checking outlines as well, so I'm QAing outlines. Yeah, but yeah, it has changed definitely, because our team, I think we are 18 like fixed in team members. It's the kind of business changes from being just two people doing everything.
Yeah, we're about the same size at Clear Left, and there was 3 of us when we started.
Yeah.
And now I'm a managing director now, so
Exactly.
I do get to work or talk with clients a lot, but I don't get to do any actual design work anymore. I don't think they'd let me, to be honest.
Yeah, I must say, it's not that I is having to do the whole front from start to complete beginning. I never liked kerning. I was happy to be able to get rid of that as soon as I could.
Yeah.
Actually, there's one project I want to do. I have been thinking about the last 2 years. So perhaps I'll manage to get my hands all dirty again a little bit. But yeah, don't mind doing that more business side.
I forget who I was talking to about this at a type conference, but I think someone said, of a new type designer, said it took me 3 weeks to design it and 3 years to make it.
Yeah, the problem with fonts is that they are basically never done. You always find something. Yeah, there has to be a point that you set yourself. Okay, this is good. I like it. Let's get it out. And we've been working. We call it source updates. So we're updating some of our very old fonts, and this is painful. I'm not doing it. Seeing, oh my God, how could we draw it this way? But things technically changed so much as well. 20 years ago, there was no variable font technology. Even that one is 10 years old. But it really changed the process, because it's so fickle. Yeah, this variable font is so bloody fickle that you need to be super, super tiny with your outlines, your nodes, to get the interpolations correct.
Literata is one of those typefaces. I use it on my blog, and as you mentioned optical sizing earlier on, but that's one of the things that really has become possible that just really wasn't I mean, of course it was before because you had optical sizes before, but to have that work automatically, and with Literata, the
Yeah.
difference between the text sizes and the sort of display sizes is it's almost like a different typeface, isn't it?
Yes.
The difference between the two. But yeah, I love it. I mean, so did the way with Literata, like Google came knocking on the door saying, we need a new font for our ebook readers.
Pretty much. Yeah. We knew Dave Crossland, of course. He was in Reading as
Yeah.
well. Scene is small. It's much bigger than it used to be, but it is still quite small. And say being the old folks now, we lots of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, with Google, that was a good time for Google Fonts in particular. And ebooks were newish, iPads were newish, and they tried to have an alternative to Kindle. And they realized that the typeface they were using is just not working. It's too stiff and it's not pleasant to read on screen and so on. So yeah, he approached us. It was a fun project that was also two phases. So it was a smaller scope at the beginning, and then they decided, okay, they want to do the optical sizes as well.
And Andy, it looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just curious as to how the business has changed. And I mean, not just technology, but the actual business of making selling something, which is even for somebody that buys licenses for typefaces on a regular basis. You know, we must be in a teeny tiny percentage of people that understand where typefaces come from. And they are more available, more easily available now through, Google Fonts in particular. It tends to be where, the vast majority of people will head. But how is the business of making something and selling it, how has that changed over, the 20 years that you've been doing this?
20 years ago, we had a shitty website with no proper card, and we got found by one of the best editorial designers in the UK. Yeah, we didn't do any advertising, nothing.
Who is this?
That was Palmer. Yeah, Andy Palmer, is it? From Scotland. And it was for a newspaper in, I think it was and then, of course, with social media at the beginning, you had to be out there, be more in the minds and hearts of people. Ideally, reach out to designers, talk to agencies. But even that is not enough today. Because Latin type making has become easier and faster. And it's more, I'm still really surprised at students that they have this interest in type design. Yeah, in a way, I don't quite understand it and why they think this is a place for them to be. But it's great if people want to continue doing type, because it is something that I don't think will disappear. Who knows today? So in that sense, what changed is that the competition is much more intense and bigger from all sides. It's not enough to just put out a few pretty pictures with your typeface and then you'll have a success. It's not going to really happen unless, I don't know, you hit really the mark. So on the point of something that people want right now. In a way, it was always a bit word of mouth. So we got a lot of clients just through, there was just, okay, we did something for somebody, they liked it. So there's this typical word of mouth. For us, what kind of changed is that we needed to move away or broaden our scope. So we could not have survived on doing text faces for books anymore. Or newspapers. Newspapers, yeah, sure, they are thing digitally. So again, with changes in society, which relates to technology as well, we had to adapt. And one big thing that really changed was web fonts, the introduction of web fonts. That in a way saved us, let's say, yeah, because it opened up all of a sudden a completely new field of potential clients. And so I remember 2009, Brian from TypeKit, that was not known back then. It was just a little startup. He was looking for foundries to jump on that train with him. And he asked us, and we said, yeah, of course, come on, let's try. And it was one of the best decisions we did business-wise back. In a way, always approach to technology that we are not afraid of it. We want to play with it. We want to kind of progress with.
When I was trying to build up the library or basically type foundries who were part of FontDeck, of which you were as well, at the same sort of time, I was really pleased actually with how quickly type foundries had come around to this idea that actually websites are a new market for us. It is actually a market, and there are people there who will pay. And you sort of feel like the music industry or something, it's spent so many years battling the whole idea of an MP3.
Yeah.
And yet within a year, Type Foundries have sort of said, okay, this is good for us. We'll get behind it and work out something that works.
How does the economics of Google fonts work? I mean, if I'm a type designer that designs, I don't know, my bin face type, do Google pay me to have it on Google Fonts? Or am I thinking that I will just make it available out there as a kind of a loss leader, as advertising work?
It did change. So at the very beginning of Google Fonts, they just basically got whatever they could get. And I don't think they always paid for it, because Google Fonts is free, it's open source. Yeah. It doesn't get licensed. You don't, as a designer, you don't get any money from it. And that over time changed, and they started focusing more on scripts that are not served. And still, they do make a change in scripts. I don't know, for example, Sinhala or some other scripts that are underserved typographically, digitally underserved, because they're complex to make, because they are expensive to make, and they might not even be enough type experts to do that. So Google then started to commission certain projects, certain scripts, actually pay and partially pay pretty well. The literary was paid by Google, and that was okay. It was fine. And then there were also early-ish when Dave was going around and asking, hey, do you not have a typeface that you would, for a certain small amount of money, you would give us to build up the library, to build up the Google Fonts library. So we gave him, I think, 2 or 3 fonts. It was fine for us to do. How it works today exactly, we work on specific projects like the Playwright Primarium one. As far as I know, Dave's Google Fonts now, since AI, it all changed anyway, because Google is drawing all of the fonts to AI. So they lost quite a lot of budget. They had to stop a lot of projects because of that. And I don't know if the moratorium is still on or not. Perhaps it starts to move around again. And so I don't know if he still really commissions Latin fonts, or if you can write them, hey, I have this font, I want to put it on Google Fonts. To be honest, I don't. Yeah. That was never really of our interest. So, but you don't need Google really to put out a font. You just, if you want, you set up a small website and you put it out there. And if it's a free font, it will be picked up by either all these semi-legal websites that have a whole bunch of free fonts, or
Well, I know you have a hard stop, Veronica. So I think at that point, just to say, I'm glad to see that TypeTogether is still a thriving independent type foundry. I hope it continues that way.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank you.
so much for your time. It's been fascinating to talk to you, hear about Futura 100 and how things work at TypeTogether.
It
Yeah,
was
fascinating.
fun.
Hopefully, we can pick this up at some point in the future, because I think it's one of those areas that even designers who are non-type designers don't fully understand exactly the, not just the methods, but the mechanics, but the market behind the making and selling type. So yeah, if you're happy to come on again at some point, I'm sure we could pick up that conversation.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to, of course.
Well, lovely to meet you.
To meet you. And yeah, nice to see you again, Rich.
Well, thanks, Veronica. That was absolutely fascinating. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next one. Cheers, Rich. Thanks for sorting that out.
See you next time.